Well, it's been a little while since we've managed to catch up with Melanie Veness, but we do talk to her at the crucial moments in South African business history, and this is one of them. Yeah, I think long-time members of our tribe, Mel, will remember how you brought us up to date with the July 2021 riots. Your place in KwaZulu-Natal, in the Pietermaritzburg Midlands, as the voice of business in that area, puts you into a very interesting spot right now, given that we have only got a couple of weeks to go before some pretty hectic tariffs kick in for those who are exporting into the United States. You haven't chosen a very easy path for yourself, but how are your members feeling about things right now?
Oh, it's certainly interesting, domestically and globally. Gosh, it's quite something. You need quite a backbone to run a business in these current times. It's tricky.
There's a lot of people in KZN who actually are focused on the export market. I think about many engineering operations, for instance, in particularly in Pietermaritzburg and in other parts of the province. What do you say to them when they ask you whether these 40% tariffs are actually going to come in? And I say 40% because it's 30% and Trump says another 10% bonus because we're members of BRICS. How do you suggest that they respond?
You know, it's a really difficult space to operate in and to know what's happening. But if you have a look at America's National Trade Estimate, which is a report that's published every year on each and every country, on trade with each and every country. This has kind of been brewing for quite some time. It's not a overnight new thing. So the Americans have been raising some stuff for a while. Some of the stuff is stuff that we could address, policy issues that are unfavorable, or considered unfavorable in a lot of places that they've raised. Some of them are practices. So to do with standards, they say that we require standards that are higher than standards employed international standards accepted anywhere else. And some of them have to do with long-standing issues around poultry, and a very sensitive issue right now is blueberries. Um, they're saying we're not addressing any of their issues. One of the things that they've spoken quite a lot about is the EU-SA Development Community Economic Partnership Agreement, which they say is more favorable to the EU than it is to them. And given a go, they don't think that's fair. So quite a lot of the stuff that has been raised, I don't know to what degree we've actually taken steps to address those issues. What's coming back in our engagements with our counterparts in America is that we've taken a lot of time explaining why things are as they are and why they should stay as we think they should stay. In other words, we're saying things like, well, our citrus is grown at the opposite time of the year. It's countercyclical to their citrus. So why are they taking an issue with our citrus? But that's not flying. They're saying these are the things that make trade, in their view, unfair. Their position now is that they want to address non-reciprocal trade practices. They want to address the trade deficit, specifically in agriculture. And it's not time to tell the United States why it is that things should stay the same, but we have to tell them how things are going to be different. And it's time to negotiate a new agreement. Um, they are an important trade partner for us, and in our view, we're saying, make the best deal you possibly can, address the issues that you can address in terms of policy, and some of that stuff can be addressed. Make the best deal that you can, and then start negotiating new favorable trade agreements with other partners, and protect our industry and pivot as soon as you can. I mean, that's the most logical approach.
Well, there have been a couple of very interesting developments today. The Financial Times of London said that all barring two countries, China and Canada, have caved, and Donald Trump has saved already $50 billion in the last quarter in tariffs that the American taxpayers are going to benefit from. So he'll be feeling his oats, that's for sure. And then the other issue that we've published this morning, a incredibly well thought through think piece from Tlelo Giyose from First Avenue Capital. He's traveled, or First Avenue Investments. He's traveled all over the world. He was educated in the US as well as here in South Africa. He says it's all about, and he knows Americans. He actually speaks with American accent. He says it's all about uh, non-tariff barriers, non-tariff measures. And he says that we've got to actually sober up, because we pay 30% more for motor vehicles in South Africa so that we can export motor vehicles to the United States duty-free. So actually, if you think about that, he's got a point, and Donald Trump's got a point. But that it's not just us, though. It's all over the world where these non-tariff barriers exist. Is there any signal, any sign from Pretoria that they are kind of starting to get what Trump's on about, and how he wants to change the world's trade situation to get rid of these non-tariff barriers?
Well, I haven't picked up any signals, and they're not being particularly open about the approach that they're taking. So, it would be important for them to communicate that stuff to us. We're sitting here at the coalface with members that are worried about the sustainability of the organizations. We ought to be able to communicate to them that some progress is being made, because we have to wait like everyone else for the announcements of the new tariffs, that the negotiations have failed and the tariffs will be employed, and that's it. We need our government to speak to us. They need to tell us what's happening.
You mentioned blueberries. What's going on there?
So blueberries have been raised as an issue. Access for US blueberries to our market. It is something that we grow here for export. So I'm not sure what the issues are around that, but I believe that there's a standoff about blueberries. So it would be interesting to understand exactly what's happening in that space. It's down in the Western Cape, and I think somewhere up north, maybe in the northwest, where they're growing blueberries for export, mostly to the EU and to the UK, as I understand it. But I don't know how having American blueberries into South African's market would affect that. Not being part of my portfolio.
And chickens?
Oh, it's a very tricky thing to go near. So it has a lot to do with protecting our own chicken industry. And in America, they tend to utilize the white breast meat, and then the rest of the meat needs to find a market. Um, and there were some challenges with our chicken industry, definitely with chicken imports from Brazil, and from issues with the states. So I think there's quite a lot of negotiation that has to go on as far as chickens are concerned, and I know that government has to look at our own chicken industry, and make some decisions in that space. I couldn't tell you what the discussions have entailed so far, but I was involved some years ago when our chicken industry, we've got quite a big chicken industry locally, um, was facing issues with dumping and non-protection here, decimated jobs in this area. So I know that chickens are a very sensitive space.
It sounds very complicated, the whole trade gamut. When you enter into a business, you're not always aware of what the complications might be behind the scenes. And I guess now a lot of your members are finding out, a lot of businesses in South Africa as a whole are finding out that the world is not quite what it might seem. So again, what do you suggest to these people? I remember in the riots in 2021 in KZN, you said people are, a lot of them are going to leave, and some of them are actually going to fussbait and start again and rebuild from the ashes. What can you say to them now, given that this is potentially, for exporters anyway, as big a threat?
Yeah, you diversify your product lines. If you've relied on a single product line to feed the automotive industry, that's a challenge. You need to diversify products, and we need as a government to make the best possible deal to maintain trade with the US, but then we need to look for new markets. You need to diversify your markets as well. So that's not something you can do overnight. So there's certainly going to be paid in the short term. And potentially some businesses that have put all their eggs in one basket and are supplying one industry, or predominantly export to the US, it's going to be very tricky. There's a lot of jobs at risk. I heard an estimate just earlier this morning of over 100,000 jobs at risk in the automotive industry and in citrus, in agriculture. 35,000 jobs in citrus stole if they don't, because the majority of their stuff goes to the US. That kind of reliance is risky, and we are certainly facing some very tough times in the next while.
And where the tacky hits the tar, are people aware, and I'm talking here about the workers whose jobs are at risk and the unions and so on, of the precipice that we face as a country given these tariffs?
Yes, I think employers are mostly communicating with their employees, but it's a complicated space to understand. You know, it's very difficult when you are part of a process of growing things to understand why it is that you're tied into the space where potentially stuff might end overnight. In the automotive industry, I think they're feeling it already, the real crunch, because from what I understand is that there was a drop of 80% in automotive sales to the US in April in anticipation of what's about to happen. So some very real stuff happening, and it's going to get even realer as there's realignment of global trade, as you were saying earlier, as other countries make deals and perhaps put tariffs in place that make it more difficult for us to compete, or put tariffs in place that negatively affect, or reciprocal tariffs that negatively affect us, or when people can't get into the US, bypassing, using anti-dumping loopholes here and dumping stuff here. We had lots of issues in the tire industry. So very, very much disruptor is the US president, and he's done a jolly good job disrupting global trade, and it will necessitate new strategies for businesses here, but new strategies for multinationals about where the best places to put their plants. Is South Africa an attractive place to maintain those plants now? Um, it's got repercussions that are far, far reaching, and it's pretty scary.
Well, let's hope that there is some leadership finally that comes from Pretoria Plonkers FC. I'm not terribly hopeful, but I think most of us aren't. But getting back to your part of the world, back in the news again, Lieutenant General Nhlantla Mkhwanazi, your head of police, dropping a bombshell. We know that there's been all kinds of issues on the crime side with construction mafia, etc. How have people in KZN, or particularly the business community, because that's who you speak for, reacted to what the general had to say?
Listen, I think you'll find the business community and most of KZN very, very strongly behind Mkhwanazi. He's been incredibly effective as a police commissioner. He's got on top of dealing with the construction mafia. He's addressing crime with no apology. He's been incredibly strong. And initially, when there was an attempted smear campaign, or that's what the business community believe it was, in advance of his statement, uh, people accepted that it was a smear campaign and stood with him. They still stand very strongly with him. And from our own experience, I mean, I can only talk about the things that have happened that I'm aware of. They support the statements that Mkhwanazi is making. Our sense on the ground is that there have been massive issues in that space. Some of the things that I can think about is a few years back, the SIU was the hawk. Somebody came in and seized all our municipal weapons and took them away for ballistics testing to see whether they tied into political killings. We were told off the record that they had tied them to political killings, but nothing's happened since then. So we don't know what that actually means. There have been several incidents, yes, locally. I remember trying to sort a problem downtown in Maritzburg out with a municipal official and saying to him, "Why can't we get down there and sort out this particular issue?" And he said, "You don't understand anything." He said he went down there to try and sort out some of the issues because downtown has been taken over largely by foreigners. There's issues with drugs and human trafficking and all sorts of nasty things. And some of those areas are slowly becoming a no-go area. And he said to me, "You don't understand anything." He said, "I went down there, my people went down there. 5 minutes there, they get a phone call from a senior politician, says, 'Leave my people alone.'" So this sort of stuff comes up all the time. and lends credence to what Mkhwanazi is saying. We've had other incidents. I've been downtown with a colleague of mine to the Wonga dens downtown to try and understand what's happening down there, how we can intervene to try to create a place where we can try to help some of those young people out of the trap of Wonga. And we did tell everybody we were going down there. We went with the police, the local chap responsible for that sector of town. And while we were there, while we were talking to them, we suddenly got raided. I mean, the places haven't been raided in months, but we tell people we're going to be there. Suddenly they're riding in on motorbikes and storming in from everywhere and arresting people. And that just destroyed trust within 5 seconds. So um, I'm not surprised. Um, I don't think a lot of South Africans are surprised, and I hope that our leadership at national are reading the mood on the ground appropriately, because it is very, very strongly in favour from Mkhwanazi, and any move to remove him from what's coming from the ground will result in things we really don't want to see.
So it's not that he's a good marketer or a good PR guy. He's actually been effective.
Yeah, he's been very effective. He's been very, very effective. And we've been immensely impressed with him. He sat down with business right from the beginning. We've understood where the problems are. We've partnered at a provincial level to address some of the issues. And if you look at the construction mafia stuff, I saw some stats the other day. I mean, we used to have sort of 60 attacks a year, and we're down to 6 last year, from what I understand things. So I mean, he has really been effective.
And he tells us that many crooked politicians are sitting in parliament. Are any politicians supporting him? Is there any political party, in particularly in KZN, that says he's our man?
I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen the matter become politicized in any way. It's really remained, in my view, about the issues. And the issue is that South Africans, for a long time, um, have been desperate for somebody to stand up and address some of the issues that are negatively impacting ordinary citizens. And he's been brave and stood up, and that's kind of rallied support, groundswell support for him, because he's actually stood up and said no more. And the thing that I hear people repeat all the time is there's no ways that a policeman can be friends with a criminal. It's resonated hugely with people, and they appreciate him standing up. And as I say, there's immense support for him.
Well, you've stuck around in Maritzburg when the world of opportunities was available to you. Why?
I'm passionate about this area. I love it. This is where I choose to have my home and to operate from. There's plenty of space. I also, as you know, head the National Association, the Association of South African Chambers, and just recently I've been appointed to serve on the ICC World Chambers Federation General Council, representing South Africa. So I do get lots of great exposure and enough. Engagement to keep me really very happy. And I live where it makes me happiest. This area is beautiful. You yourself lived up in the Midlands, so you know what it's like, and it's where my heart belongs.
So, what keeps the hope going in
Oh,
your heart?
I think it's the people. I also think South Africa's two things. One, we're a drop goal in the dying moments of the game kind of place. So every time we seem to reach a crisis, somebody kicks a drop goal and takes us into a win. So it's eternal hope that we'll do that. This country is still the most amazing place in the world to live. Our people are phenomenal. I'm kind of tired of sitting on the edge of potential, instead of seeing that potential become something meaningful. We have everything. We have all the ingredients. Just a lot gets in the way, and I think that what we're doing now is getting to a place where things are going to change for the better. So for me, South Africa is worth fighting for every bit. People, people, people will come together to see us through. I think we'll be able to do that as long as we get on top of I think our biggest problem and the greatest cancer in our country is corruption. When I was in Rwanda, I went to go and hike to the silverback gorillas, to sit with the gorillas. But when I was there, I was speaking to my guide, chap by the name of Moses, and I said to him, Moses, when Rwanda had to come out of the space where they had that massive genocide, and it was probably the lowest point ever, and you had new leadership that came in, what did those leaders do to inspire hope with the people that you could turn Rwanda around? And he said to me, what I thought was quite strange when he said it, he said, zero tolerance of corruption gave people hard hope. And I thought about that, and I realized how incredibly insightful that is, because in an unfair society, people cannot compete because the odds are stacked against you to start off with. So if ordinary South Africans feel that they can't even start at the same point on the starting blocks as anybody else, then we're never going to get our country right. Corruption is the cancer that is killing us. And that's something I think that people intuitively understand, which is why when Mkhwanazi stands up and he says, no more of this criminality, it resonates with people. South Africans are tired, and that's a good thing.
Melanie Veness is the Chief Executive of the Pietermaritzburg and Midlands Chamber of Business. She's also the head of all the chambers in South Africa and serves on the international body. I'm Alec Hogg from BizNews.com.